Hi, this is Michael Waits, and welcome back to Insurance for the New Possible, a Chubb conversation. Today, we are joined by Cheryl Tan, Executive Chairperson of Tribe Benefits from Altria. Abhishek Rathi, International Head of Wellness and Digital Worksites, Chubb Overseas General. Before we get into the main part of this conversation, let's get a little bit of both of your backgrounds for some context. And Cheryl, let's start with you.
Okay, thank you, Michael. My name is Cheryl Tan. I'm the chairperson for Altria, which owns Tribe Benefits. I am a pharmacist by training, and I did my business degree in London School of Economics. I spent the last 30 years in the life science industry, working for the likes of GSK, Novartis, Abbott, and Sanofi in both the international and global space. I have journeyed with Altria since its inception 7 years ago. As a strategic advisor and currently as the executive chair.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Abhishek?
Cheryl, first of all, it's great to be actually doing this with you. So thank you so much for that. And Michael, thank you for the opportunity. I have about 2 decades of experience, and I would call myself as an intrapreneur, working as an entrepreneur within a large organization and focused on very passionate and focused on driving business outcomes by interconnecting the dots between customer, business, and technology, while also considering vision, strategy, and execution considerations. And I have to say, I'm a servant leader and always look for learning opportunities. And this is a great opportunity today to actually learn from you, Cheryl.
Absolutely.
Likewise, Abhishek.
Okay, let's start this by defining wellness and its key elements. Abhishek, why don't you do this one?
You always put the tough question to me, right?
Sure, why not?
Okay. I would say wellness is about achieving balance between key elements of life that encompasses physical, mental, financial, social, spiritual, environmental, and emotional. It's not about striving for perfection. It's not about the perfect score that you want in each of the aspects of life. It's about finding that harmony and balance and being able to actually manage, across these facets. And I would say it's about self-discovery and continuous improvement.
I totally agree what Abhishek has just described in his definition of wellness. And actually, because I come from the life science space, right? And we all know that physical health is just but one of the dimensions of measuring wellness. So if you look at a spectrum, if you will, of wellness continuum, on the extreme right hand, you actually see a holistic well-being person. But on the left-hand side, if we talk about physical wealth, it's actually a sick person. Right? So wellness is actually the active pursuit based on a person's activity, choices, and lifestyle to attain a holistic whole person well-being. Can I go on? Okay, so if you look at a static point of health, which is a sick person, which is what my previous life talked to and managed. A sick person makes a static, passive decision to seek treatment for a condition. Right? And it's episodic, it's reactive, and it's within the confines of what the clinicians are prescribing. Whereas wellness, you said it very rightly, it's a journey. It's a continuous journey. It's an active, self-directed journey to achieve complete wellness.
Yeah, so I agree with that, Cheryl. And, for the listeners, I would also say that it's very easy to actually consider wellness as only physical. That's what a large part of the population actually believes in.
I think that's what people think about when they hear it,
but
right?
Think about emotional wellness. Think about social wellness. Think about the relationships that matter to you with yourself, your family, as well as your friends. And think about the relationship with the environment.
Correct.
The responsibility that we have towards ensuring that, we respect what we are bestowed with.
Yeah, and totally agree. It's multidimensional. And in fact, wellness has its roots, right, in ancient healing methodology, in Ayurvedic, for example. In the Chinese context for 3,000 years, I think it's well rooted in traditional Chinese medicine. When you talk about the yin and the yang, the harmony, the harmonious existence of all the elements, I think the wellness takes its roots. And actually, today in the modern world, we are beginning to see its application.
Can we make the point as well that you can't separate, because you had all these components, wellness, right? Spiritual wellness, mental wellness, physical wellness, and environmental wellness, social wellness, right? All these aspects. Can we make the case that all of them are connected as well?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Do you understand what I mean? That if you're not mentally well, it's hard to be physically well.
Correct.
And vice versa.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Perfect sense.
I'll give you my example, Michael.
Please.
If I'm having a bad day and, I just take out and hit out for running, I'm listening to a podcast, or I'm actually satisfying my mental craving of a creative, pursuit, as well as I am actually also pushing my limits as far as my physical wellness is concerned. And at the end of the day, when that happens, it just rubs off on the other aspects.
Absolutely.
Having said that, I think it's so interconnected. You
It's
cannot separate
So
Yeah.
one from
this is
the
why I
other.
start every one of my days with a run in a gym, because when I'm done doing that, I feel like now I feel physically well. I feel mentally well because I feel like I've accomplished something. And now I feel like I can do anything.
That's true. Looking for the personal sweet spots, right?
Yeah.
All the time.
I think so. You mentioned life sciences at the beginning. Can we talk a little bit about how the life science industry is the backbone of the health and wellness industries?
Yeah. So for now, we're really talking about the evolution of managing physical health.
Yes.
Right. So we talk about life sciences. Earlier on, I made a point that it's actually it's a very pathogenic industry that looks at causes, diagnoses, and treatment of diseases.
Right.
Right. And of course, the industry has morphed with a lot of Internet of medical things. So you have sensors, devices now to actually enable machine-to-machine communication and to monitor patients even after they left the clinic.
Right.
So right now, in certain industries and clinical settings, patients are discharged not just with a prescription for the pills. They are also discharged with a tool so that physicians can continue to monitor, right, and follow up with the patient in the home space. So these tools and technology can actually be cross-fertilized and transferred to the wellness space, right? So later on, I'm sure we can touch base on how we can use these devices to help and reward certain behaviors that we like to modify.
We'll get
Does
there.
that make sense?
That makes perfect sense. Do you, when you run, you said, right?
Yeah.
Do you wear some kind of sensor when you're running?
Oh, yeah.
And you track and measure all that stuff?
Oh, yeah. And in fact, it's funny you say that because, I have one of these Apple Watches, and this was taken 6-7 years ago.
Oh, wow.
And the crazy thing about it is that it's recording, and it is also showing me streaks, right? And those streaks are not only for the day, for the week,
Right.
for the month. And then on top of that, across these parameters, you have these, trends to say, how are you doing in the last 90 days over your prior 360 days? I tell you what, that device alone, without giving any reward, without giving any extrinsic motivation,
I know the feeling.
is driving me in terms of pushing myself and ensuring that my rings
I know the
are
feeling.
closed.
Yeah. And there's one more point I think I like to make about
Please.
the life science industry. You look at the advances in diagnostics,
Right.
right? And actually, if you look at this company called Lucens, it's a Singapore-based company. It's come up with a test, right, using advanced genomics, using AI to actually detect 50 cancers by the draw of a single draw of the blood, right? And actually to detect cancer at its earlier stages. People think of cancer as a life sentence, but if detected earlier with the right intervention, death can really be prevented. So these are powerful tools that we can be, again, introduced in the wellness space.
I would add to that what Cheryl was saying, and she did speak about wellness continuum.
Yes.
The way we look at wellness continuum is a cycle which starts from awareness, diagnostics, prevention, protection,
Yes.
access to care, and behavior change.
Yes.
And what you were giving a great example of is diagnostics. And in fact, this is where the industry is moving towards, investing a lot in education of the customer and employees, as well as investing with advanced technology to figure out the best way of diagnostics and prevention.
Precisely.
Frankly, it's a win-win-win.
Yeah.
The customer and employees feel happy if they are, if we can identify much early on.
Yep.
And then if we are able to provide them the right treatments when they need the most, I think it's a win-win. So pushing the, pushing the boundaries of technology to actually look at the best diagnostics and prevention is the way forward for us.
Cannot agree more.
I like it. Cheryl, you've worked, again, it's some amazing companies like across the board. It sounds like an incredible career. I mean that. But you've worked with large companies, small companies,
Yes.
medium-sized companies, right? What are their key objectives for employee well-being and wellness? What should they be thinking about?
I think one of the reasons why they're now talking about employee health and wellness is medical inflation, right? If you look at Singapore, has been going up significantly.
Everywhere in the world.
Yeah, that's
Everywhere
true.
in the world.
That's true.
Absolutely.
And it's double-digit growth.
Yes.
Yeah. So companies need to manage this inflation, the increase in premiums that they have to deal with. The only way is to have a healthy workforce, right? And there's a big body of evidence that's supporting why companies should adopt health and wellness, modalities, right? A huge bunch. You can, name the medical journals. Yeah, I don't think I need to do it here. So they do it to increase productivity, retention, reduce absenteeism, increase collaboration. And I think companies all get it. Yeah. And if I look at the clients that we're serving today, after the pandemic, the virus has actually accelerated the adoption of health and wellness
Well,
propositions.
people so much want to pay attention now to things because at some level they feel like I can rely on myself to know how I feel.
Yeah.
How can I self-diagnose at some level? Sorry, go
Yes.
ahead.
No problem. So I think the point I'm trying to make is increasingly there's a higher rate of adoption. And however, I'd like to also tell a little story here.
Please.
3 weeks ago, I actually visited had a conversation with a prospective client who, because of the increase in medical inflation, has turned flex benefits on his head backwards. They've now, instead of wanting to, continue on a flex program, this is not our client, this is a prospective client, they decided to give out money and not have to manage with the double-digit medical inflation. So that to me is a little absurd, and I'm really hoping that we can be persuasive enough for more companies not to move in that direction.
Cheryl, that's great. That is great anecdote as well as great sharing from you. If I look at large, medium or small corporates, I think them doing two things. Everybody is looking at a product market fit. And there are two ways to look at it. You increase your willingness to pay. So you actually create such a great product or a service that customers want to pay. Or you want to actually increase willingness to sell, which means you have an ability to attract employees and also manage them, their expectation, their aspirations by creating a culture whereby you basically have the lowest attrition in the world as well as you attract the right talent to actually come to you. So I would say that employee well-being is a very, very important element of improving that willingness to sell. And it's not only about the physical wellness. I would again say it's about what kind of culture that the organization is providing, whether it is small or medium enterprise, right? What kind of empowerment is being provided, what kind of innovation is being done so that the employee comes motivated on a daily basis to kind of give that best, which is where the concept of that social wellness comes in. And as you would have heard, if you have a friend in the office, you're more likely to not leave that company.
Absolutely.
That's totally true. And I think it's also a chance for the company, for the leaders of the company, for HR to show employees, I know this sounds a bit tacky, but to show employees that you actually care deeply about them. And I think that's really important too for retention.
Yeah. I agree. Look, I've seen this go through certain cycles, right? When I was in the early 2000s, you had all these internet startups happening, right? This is when they started to get really popular. And the guys and gals where I was working at Goldman Sachs were like, those guys get to dress in jeans and T-shirts. Why are we wearing suits? But it doesn't seem related. But in one way, it is, though, right? Because the company's actually changed. They said, we want you to feel better about yourself and also just be happier here.
So true.
Because they didn't want people to leave and go work in Silicon Valley. And I think this health and wellness thing is now, this is a different cycle, but it's happening the same way. Companies like, because before when I was working, it was like, you get in at 6, you leave at midnight, and I don't care how you feel.
Right.
But feel free to wear your jeans. But now it's like, we want you to feel great. Come in 3 days a week.
Yes.
Be more productive.
Yep.
And I think that's happening. I think it's a secular change.
What I would just say, Michael, to that, be productive, come 3 days in a week. We need to actually move towards providing that flexibility, yet at the same time providing the autonomy.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yeah, I mean, I was
think
simplifying to make a point, but yeah.
Guardrails are great.
Right.
And guardrails in terms of building that culture and innovation that we want to talk about, where we basically say that sometime during the month, you need to be coming together so that there is bonding happening, there's a relationship, there is serendipity. So I would say that organizations, again, large, small or medium, would benefit by way of providing flexibility, yet at the same time autonomy. And this actually, enhances that well-being that the employee feels.
I think so too. Cheryl, let's dig a little bit deeper on this, right? What are some of the key elements that need to be personalized? Right? We have all of these diagnostic stuff,
Right.
all this technology, and we talk about personalization across the board in every industry. What is it here?
So when we talk about personalization, and if you look at the current workforce, in any organization, there could be 4 generations of workforce.
Yeah.
Right?
Now, yeah,
In
for
there,
sure.
From baby boomers to Gen Z.
Right.
And what works for baby boomers, Gen X, looking at us, and Gen Zs are quite different, and traditional way is to have a common goal for all. So I work in healthcare company. We used to run, health and wellness program, but it's a one size fits all
For everybody.
approach. So we all know about physical activity and better health. Again, there's a lot of evidence, right? All-cause mortality for those who, doing more steps is a lot better than those who do fewer steps. So company, the simple, increase in activity dimension they're looking at will be do 10,000 steps. But 10,000 steps could be easy peasy, right? For, Gen Z, but for some baby boomers, it can be quite a challenge. So I think what is important is to personalize the goal. Get them to set their own personal goal with rewards, and then egging them on to take on more demanding challenges by providing more rewards.
As they go on.
Yeah, as they go on.
Go ahead.
So I think the program design needs to take into account the differing needs and build relevancy.
What I would add to that, Cheryl, is there are 2 elements, again, gamification. And, when people hear gamification, the risk is only looking at extrinsic rewards, right? What am I getting?
Yes.
Ultimately, if you look at from a customer or an employee perspective, it's all about value. And the value definition changes from person to person.
That's true
So
too.
2 elements that strike with me is purpose, right? Can organizations create a purpose which actually motivates and creates a momentum on its own? Point number 1. Point number 2 is, apart from your individual goal, how about creating a community?
Yeah.
Because it is very
I'll
well
talk to
known that nothing better than peer pressure.
Yes.
And when you have a community actually joining you in that purpose, that creates momentum. So I know of an organization back in India which actually continuously drives planking, right? There are organizations which have been investing in running, right? So it's about that consistency with which you support a cause. And the purpose part is also equally valuable, because if you give only extrinsic rewards as an individual, you get something. But what if you were to able to allow that employee to donate that for charity?
Right.
You are calling on a very different element of that intrinsic motivation, and then making it much easier for them to participate in these activities. What do you think?
I've actually several examples to address what you've just raised.
Go for
Those
it.
very interesting point. I'll go for it. I think one, if you look at, for example, it's hard to modify behavior, as we know. Try telling your kids to eat greens, right? Try telling a smokers to cut down on smoking.
Right.
Try telling an unhealthy, sorry to say that, obese person to try to cut down unhealthy
It's just
eating
hard
habits.
work.
It's hard.
Yeah.
So actually, this body challenge, this peer-to-peer pressure, positive pressure, actually we found have resulted in a lot more positive changes. I actually would like to talk to maybe an example. We encourage physical activity. So in one of our programs, if you actually I can't say scale Bukit Timah Hill, right? Because it's not that high. Climb Bukit Timah Hill, take a picture of yourself, you get a certain number of points. But if you actually do it with your family, you get additional points and rewards. But if you do it with your colleagues, building collaboration, you get the highest number of points. So we use different tier of reward system to actually push for them to attain higher goals and also build collaboration.
Wonderful.
And also, I think it's good to incorporate some behavior science into the way we run our programs. We also find that framing opting out is a greater way to improve participation versus opting in to
Really?
join a program.
Really?
Yes, simple tweaks, right, like that to improve. And also, we could also award points to them as a team up front. And every day, we may choose a member of the team to represent the team. If the member doesn't achieve the goal, the team loses all their points. But if a member does what he or she is supposed to do that day, they get to keep the points and perhaps more. So this is to encourage collaboration, accountability, and peer support. So I think by incorporating simple behavioral sort of economics to it, we can make the program more powerful.
I love the opting
Couldn't
out.
agree more. Yeah,
I really do. I love
Absolutely.
the opting out. Sorry, go ahead.
Absolutely. And look, it's again the definition of that value and rewards and seeing something tangible being credited to my account when I have done this as an individual or as a group is an important aspect.
Because we're wired that way. Instant gratification, sad to say.
Yeah,
Exactly.
So we have also talked about how, about sustainability and feeling good about doing something good. We also have points going towards building a gratitude tree. So you don't get instant rewards like points or dollars, but you build your gratitude tree. And once your activities are successfully completed, we actually plant a tree in your name. So that is going with the green movement, and it's also going to feeling good as an individual, how you can contribute to it.
And I would presume that your Gen Y,
Yes,
right, and the Gen Zs are
Yes.
actually more gravitating towards this kind
For
of
sure.
behavior, right?
yes, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
The touch
I
point
mean,
is very strong there.
I get
Yeah.
asked by my daughters all the time, why is that electricity not turned off? Really? Right? Why are you wasting
Very
water
nice.
while brushing? So absolutely.
Very nice.
I like
The young
it.
generation is very, very conscious
A
of
lot
how
more
they're
aware
contributing.
than us. Yeah.
I like it a lot. Do you think there are any limits to this?
In terms of
In terms
reward-
of, you're getting rewards, you're constantly getting rewards, you're seeing all these benefits, but are there limits to the amount of ways you can use to change people's behavior?
So
go ahead.
if I may, I think we have to be conscious of the fact that it should not become transactional. There is a risk of if we provide rewards and gratification instantly for all the aspects, then yes, it does help in the short term, medium term. From
Right.
a long term perspective, it might create transactional. So that's point number one. So which is why it's important to have the employee well-being supported by a bigger purpose.
Yes.
Which the organization can rally their employees towards. That's point number one. Point number two, I would also say, is to ensure that we carefully manage the data
Yes.
that we are collecting
Mm-hmm.
and taking the consent,
Mm-hmm.
and letting the employees and the customers always feel in control of how their data is being used.
For sure.
Because knowingly, unknowingly, all the personalization that this data allows us to do, it is also going to erode that trust
Sure.
if it is not managed well. And one bad actor will create a negative impact.
Sure.
So to the point, staying true to the purpose of what you're doing this well-being for. And second is utilizing the data very carefully. Would you agree, Cheryl?
Yes, I do agree with you, Abhishek. Just to Michael's point, right, of how sustainable is this behavior for long-term behavioral change. I think we all know that long-term behavioral change is a very difficult one. Nobody has really successfully cracked it. But if you look at some of the longitudinal studies that talk about when benefits are introduced and the follow-up, right, to the behavior, some maybe 18-20% of the individuals who participated 2 years later, after benefits program, is withdrawn, they continue to have good, healthy
Awesome.
ways of going on. But I think these individuals have actually seen the good that the programs have done for them at a personal level, and the personal conviction actually helped to move them along this spectrum. But it's tough. I think
I
it's
would
tough.
agree. And that is where the behavioral economics is.
Yeah.
That it is actually incentivizing and rewarding people in the hope that you have actually created that habit already.
Yep.
So yeah, it just needs to not be stretched
Yep.
beyond a point. So I would say that there is a room to ensure that there is diminishing returns over a period of time in terms of rewards, and you have the other motivators kind of brought in to ensure that the habit formation that you spoke about is actually sustained.
Actually, funny enough, I'm actually going to talk about continuous reward, if I may.
Please.
If you look at insurance-linked wellness, right? The touch points of consumer with insurers, right? It's very low touch point. It's when I buy and when I claim, right? I may have to give blood, wait for results. That's even worse. I got to give blood to buy a product. High touch points and then very quickly become very low touch point. But my point here is very well people, healthy people like insurance-linked wellness because they know they want to be healthy, they stay healthy, and the lapse rate will be low. So for a certain cohort of customers or consumer, I think this kind of behavior can go on.
Yes.
Because there is reward. They actually pay lower premiums, and I think that may be a way to go to encourage, right, positive behavior.
And there is statistics actually which is proving what you're saying. So Bain & Company did a study in APAC in 2024, which actually indicates that wellness is a number one priority for consumers.
Right.
And what that study is also talking about is that 85% of the consumers are willing to take efforts to maintain their well-being. And the surprising thing again is that 91% of these 85% say that they want their insurance companies to take an active role in
Right.
providing them holistic health care. Right? So absolutely, you're spot on.
Right. And just one small point, but I feel that the one that's going to move the needle will be when insurance company effectively partner with those with chronic illnesses, because that's where the highest cost is.
This is an area very, very close to my heart, Cheryl. And while insurers have done a great job of actually introducing reward-based behavior change, there is an opportunity to actually break that mold and identify what works for you as an individual.
Right.
We were looking at personalization, right? And you were giving an example of the Gen Z to Gen X kind of a differential behavior. I would say the opportunity now is to look at curating pathways. So, and as insurers, we actually hold the hand when the going gets tough, frankly. So why just limit ourselves to just paying that claim when we can actually provide them that access, that connection to the right provider so that they feel comfortable. So that, I believe, is a great, great opportunity for the entire industry.
I think what you just described, right, prompts me to take up the other point of collaboration between insurers and InsurTech.
Go for it.
Yeah, I think with the proliferation of digital tools, so on and so forth, and to engage, the go-to-market strategy to engage young users, right, has to be through InsurTech. And increasingly, we see more partnership with insurers, with companies like ourselves, offering flexible benefits, rewards, offering teleconsult, telemedics. And because you want to be actually at the touch points of where the customers and consumers are. And through digital InsurTech, insurers can actually have an omni-channel kind of approach. So I feel that, there will be more and more collaboration. To your point of having more data, more personalization of service, I really foresee that there will be a lot more M&A and collaboration.
Yeah,
absolutely. For that very reason.
Can we make the case as well, though, that we're kind of at a technology inflection point, I feel like, right? I mean, I always say this, everything goes in cycles. And even 10 years ago, you wouldn't have been able to, not everyone had an Apple Watch. We take it for granted today that it's always been there. How come you haven't been using it? So I think you can actually make the case that this idea of the InsurTechs working more closely together with insurers is just starting to happen naturally because now it's actually possible. And on top of that, and I want both of your comments on this as well, but on top of that, you now have compute is so powerful and connectivity is ubiquitous now in a way that it wasn't even 10 years ago. So now it's naturally starting to happen where the insurance companies are looking at the InsurTechs and saying, we want some of that.
Couldn't agree more with you, Michael. And I spoke about the wellness continuum, and diagnostic and prevention are places where the advanced technology and InsurTech in particular is helping. I would say not only InsurTech, but health tech overall. So right from being able to identify if your teeth is not treated, what can happen, right? Simulation, which actually makes you see for yourself what can happen to your teeth. That will be scary.
Yeah, very.
Right?
But again, you couldn't do that 5 years ago.
Exactly the point. And I think what is making all of this happen is just the access of computing you mentioned, but also access to the data and also the ability to generate synthetic data where it matters the most.
Right.
And
Can
to be
you
honest,
can you talk a little bit about synthetic data for people that may not understand what that
yeah.
means?
So synthetic data is with reference to areas where there is very little original data available to be able to make a case. Think about you take a random sample of 1 million people and identify what's the risk of cancer, right? Now maybe there is 1, 2, 3 people at most, right? Now if you were to extrapolate that may or may not work. So synthetic data helps to be able to generate those situations and those data points where you can actually build models on. So to the point is, what is making this accessibility also happen is the fact that health tech and insurtech are willing and have realized that they need to partner, with the entire industry. And what started as a space, okay, I need to take the space, now has moved into we need to coexist.
Yes.
We need
Symmetrical
to
partnership.
Absolutely. Yep. I think this is a great movement in the industry where each aspect of that health ecosystem is coming to terms with the rising cost and focused on creating that most important win, which is for that customer.
I've been doing an InsurTech podcast since May of 2019.
Right.
It's over 5 years now. And we've done 50, almost 300 episodes. And at the beginning, there was all this talk about disruption.
Yes.
But I want to tell you from my experience as well that I can completely corroborate these opinions because no one talks about it anymore. Not the incumbent insurers, not the InsurTechs, not the health techs. They're all talking about, those are our potential partners, not our potential adversaries.
Yes.
And we're all trying to help the same people or businesses. We can do it better together.
Yeah, I'm totally with you, Michael. In Insurers and InsurTech partnership, it's not just a possibility. You talk about possibility. In fact, it's a necessity.
Absolutely.
Right? Today is a necessity. And we also want to touch base on collaboration within the industry.
Go for it.
How do we drive value by collaborating across the industry? So if we look back, right, industries with very competitive elements, automobile, telecommunication, even in life sciences, right? The race to find the next cure,
right?
You work on collaborative efforts to actually drive that. And when profits are down and, you're with them before you think about collaboration. But in InsurTech, I still feel there is a great reluctance, even though, right, I've seen in UK where industry come together to create NGO, for example, for fraudulent motor claims to ensure that, there are no illegal claims around automobile, around accident, right? That's one example I can think of. But I think the broader collaboration across insurers where there's so much more efficiency and efficacy to improve their profit margins, that respectfully, I have not seen. And, there may be many reasons why that may be so, but perhaps, right, they can be looking at the areas that are non-proprietary, that do not differentiate themselves on, that they can pool efforts together to create a more efficient system. I'm not sure what your views are, Abhishek, on this.
You'll be surprised.
Surprise
having
me.
spent 20 years in insurance, I couldn't agree more that there can be insurers could come co-opt, and you speak about InsurTech, insurance companies, as well as health tech, and I would say the healthcare organizations and all coming together to actually work towards it. But again, it's a need of the hour. The medical costs are rising. We need to kind of bring it down. There is fatigue, right? There is imbalance between work-life balance. So we need to manage that part as well. And to what Michael shared, there is so much of advancement in technology. We don't leverage that to proliferate, right? And actually make good of the people. Then we are losing that opportunity. What might happen is that associations, industry associations, and this has to be something that the industry does it together. It cannot be enforced. So if the industry does it together, and actually who are the people who do it? It's the executive leadership. It's probably, somebody who makes that connection. People come together and then, things can happen. So I would say, yes, it is work in progress. I see great strides in the industry coming together, and we can do much more in future as well.
Maybe one last point I want to make about this, right? Insurance companies, at the call of insurance company is actually risk-taking at a price, of course, right? And I think they need to weigh carefully the risk of maintaining the status quo versus the potential advantages of collaborating at the level that they can be comfortable with. And this is a challenge I like to put to the insurers.
Challenge accepted.
Okay.
Thank you.
Cheryl Tan, Executive Chairperson of Tribe Benefits from Altria, and Abhishek Rathi, International Head of Wellness and Digital Worksites, Chubb Overseas General. That was amazing.